Glad you could all join us this evening, and hopefully those at the door there or sitting, join a table here. We're going to have opportunity for a little bit of table conversation after Paul speaks for a little bit. So do jump in the table with interesting looking people so you can have interesting conversation. We're all interesting looking people. I'm Mark. I'm glad to have you all here. And we have a great night of thought-provoking, hopefully inspiring conversation topics and connections with one another. And I'll have an opportunity later to share some of our thinking and our progress at SVP with all the partners, and hopefully start breaking open our strategy for the future with you as well. But hopefully you have time to connect with one another out there, and we'll move on to the next phase. I'm going to welcome Paul Spear here to introduce Paul Shoemaker. It's the Paul Show here for the next couple of minutes. Paul came to us a couple of years ago from, well, he was originally at Hewlett Packard, a resident north of Columbia, the Columbia River, and Paul helped to get an amazing capacity building program started with Social Venture Partners called the Encore Fellows Program that this year will end up putting about somewhere between 32 and 35,000 hours of talent into our community. Folks that are retiring from their professional work lives and wanting to do some service, wanting to have a next stage, an encore phase of their life, working with nonprofit organizations. And we've been privileged to be able to connect that kind of meaningful interest in the community, that kind of talent, to nonprofits that are just like soaking it up like a sponge. So Paul was our seed fellow. He got the whole thing going. Has been a great new friend of SVP and a partner, and is now on the Social Venture Partners International Network board on behalf of SVP Portland. So thank you, Paul. Thanks.
So the good news is you get a Paul here. The bad news is it's the wrong one. So my job is basically to be the opening act for Mr. Shoemaker here today. Any of you have had a chance to look at Paul's bio know that by the time you get to the age of Paul Shoemaker, you can ask a long list of great accomplishments. And he, like many of us, has got a lot of really interesting things he's done in his life. I'm not going to read through all this, but Paul's founding person of Social Venture Partners International. He's the executive director of the Social Venture Partners in Seattle. If you take a look at his board profile on either the two websites or LinkedIn, you'll see that he's a former Microsoft executive, former executive in the chocolate industry, a little bit of background. So two addictive things. One is chocolate, and the other one is Microsoft Windows. So I guess he's on to his third venture philanthropy. So there is a theme here that's tying it all together. Lots of awards. Perhaps most significantly, he's a father of 3 sons, husband, high school basketball referee, and I'll let you look at all the other great stuff he has done. What I thought would be a more interesting intro that's more to the point, I've had a chance in the last 2 years and I put this together. I think I've been involved with about 3 SVPI conferences now at the end, 50 or more emails, a half dozen phone meetings, 2 board meetings, and I can tell you what this guy is like behind the scenes, which I think is actually more important. What he's done is very, very cool. Who he is, I find very, very interesting and inspirational. The first thing that I was thinking about for Paul is this notion of passion. Paul's clearly passionate, but that falls incredibly short of what Paul really does. And then I thought, well, committed. Well, committed doesn't quite do it either. And I came up with, there's 2 words to describe this guy on this front. I would characterize Paul as being all in. Paul is incredibly all in as it relates to this space of venture philanthropy. He's highly generous. He's got an amazing sense of humor, innovative. He's truly out to change the world. You hear about that today. This is not just how do you improve things a little bit. This is how you change the world. And I think that's really the core of what SVP is all about. And then perhaps most importantly, and then I'll get out of the way, is you find out a lot about people by what others say and how they behave when that person's not in the room. When you talk to people that know Paul, and I've had a chance to meet a lot of those people in the last year in particular, the level of respect, the deep appreciation and admiration for what Paul does, who he is, and what he brings is just incredible. So you can't find anybody that says anything bad about it behind the scenes. They do in a humorous sense, and there's usually Mark is leading the way, but we won't go into that. But with that, I'm going to sit down and get out of the way. We've got a fantastic speaker here tonight, and I think you'll very much enjoy Paul Shoemaker.
everybody for being here tonight. So, those are my 3 boys when they were little guys. They are so different, and yet they make a whole. They make me whole. There's been a few times where they've driven a hole through me. Amidst many, many joys, they have challenged my optimism. They have stretched me. They've taken me to hard places and back. They're such a core part of who I am, or who I'm becoming. So I've had this job now for 23 years. And in that job, it is all about how can I help each of them realize their fullest potential, I hope. So it's been an amazing gift. It's been a struggle at times. It's been, without a doubt, a profound journey. So I've had another job for 15 years now. It's been an amazing gift. A struggle at times. A profound journey. I work with these very different people who make a whole. A family that we call SVP. So thank you very much for letting me share tonight with you. I'm here in part because this guy has come up to see us a couple times. I'm here tonight on behalf of this whole worldwide network to tell you guys that we really admire what you've had the guts to take on here. And I'm here tonight because I want to share a few thoughts with you on how I think each of us can do more to reach our fullest potential. I hope. So there are some people in this world that do go above and beyond, that are so deeply committed to real, authentic, hard work of community change, that are willing to find their crucible for social change. Some are philanthropists making deeper, better investments. Some are nonprofit leaders that make powerful change happen. When you talk to these people that are all in, by the way, those labels, they just sort of go away, the line between them blur. So I've had the profound, humbling privilege of working side by side with hundreds of these folks down the block and now around the world for the last 15 years. And I spent a lot of focused time in the last year, sort of talking to, interviewing, listening to, learning why some people go above and beyond in this work. I think what sets them apart are 3 questions. 3 touchstones in their lives that they think uniquely and deeply about and integrate into their lives. So for me, these questions, they're not just stories to share. They are also, I hope, pathways, guideposts for helping each of us, each of you, reach our fullest potential for this community. That's my first boy, Ben, a few years later. So when we had Ben, I thought that I was prepared to be a dad. And I wasn't. For a little while. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. So I had to wrestle with a question, which is, what am I prepared to believe that I'm a dad? I did get that question answered, I promise you. That is David Risher. When David was 5, his parents divorced. So his mom was left to raise he and his brother. She never really had a job, so she sold encyclopedias, in part for the benefit of having encyclopedias around their home. Whenever his mom would run errands, she'd drop him off at the library. when he walked to school, he always had a book in his hand. David told me I knew at a very personal level that I was a reader. I knew from what my mom did for me that it was like if I didn't have that, I was nothing. So a few years ago, he was down volunteering in Ecuador, and he saw a padlocked building with these books that were stacked above the windows. That's the library, he was told by the person that ran the orphanage. But I think I've lost the key. So the girls at that orphanage had already lost their interest in books, and new books didn't arrive for months, if ever. David decided then to create World Reader to help eradicate illiteracy in the developing world. So when I asked him about the kids that World Reader is trying to help, what I was expecting to hear was all the bad things and how long the odds were. First words out of his mouth were how curious, how hungry they were to learn, how enthusiastic they were. So David Risher thought deeply about what he was prepared to believe. He believes in a fundamental optimism about the kids he wants to help. He doesn't see needy, he sees potential. The same drive to learn as he sees in his own kid. And that lens affects everything that he does. He believes that what he is doing is connected to a core part of who he is. The seeds were sown. He was getting ready to do what he's doing now. Maybe not all of us will sort of have that epiphany, but if we look deep enough into our lives, we just might find it someday. And he believes that their vision of eradicating illiteracy through delivery of e-books around the world is doable. He doesn't listen to naysayers. He cannot be a spectator. So David has a fundamental optimism about those kids. His vision comes from a core of who he is, and he truly believes that this challenge is going to be solved. That is what he is prepared to believe. That's Nick, my second boy a few years later. You know, when you have one kid, you sort of think, well, that's the way the world works. Ben and Nick, 180 degrees different. So at first, I thought he was hard. He was just different. He never liked little kid things. So many parents would tell me he danced to the beat of his own drum. Believe me, he did. Maybe some of you can relate to that. People either loved and saw what was unique in him, or they rejected him. So, and without hardly anything in between. So what I had to resolve was, what am I willing to own as his dad? Right? Good times and not. That's Lisa Chin. She has a boy too. After working for 20 years, she said, I had a feeling of, okay, what now? She had a boy, her Ben. She wouldn't tell you that she had complications during her birth, but it was not an easy birth. She had a doula that empowered her all the way through it. Lisa told me I had my moment of really believing in myself. Wow, I did it. And it was through childbirth, not 3 college degrees, not all these job titles, and having another person talk her through it. She said my husband did his best to help. But I realized at that moment that I had everything I needed inside myself right now, right here. She wanted to empower other people too, to feel that same way. So several years later, she became the executive director of Year Up in Seattle. And Year Up closes the opportunity divide by empowering young adults to reach their potential through professional careers and education. People ask her now, are you happy? Lisa says, I have to think for a moment. Yeah, I'm happy, but this isn't about being happy. I completely believe in what I'm doing and who I am. And that is far more fulfilling than, are you happy? Sort of reminds me of like the greatest athletes that will describe their mindset. They like to win, but they really hate to lose. In Lisa's words, she can't not do this work. So Lisa has thought deeply about what am I willing to own. Lisa owns making a stretch. That once you make the commitment, you're willing to put in more of yourself. You're willing to stretch to do something more than you've ever done before. She owns this almost sort of visceral rejection of self-promotion. There's this egoless quality to these people. They are willing to be vulnerable, to ask for help. It's humility on steroids. And she owns finding that work that she can't not do. It's about a core sense of herself. She said she once told her kids that if somebody walked in here with a gun, I would stand in front of them for you. So, Lisa is willing to stretch. She's authentically humble. She has searched for and found that thing that she can't not do. That is what she is willing to own. That is Sam, a few years later. So when I look back over 23 years, one thing I can lament is that I wasn't as present, literally, mentally, as I should have been enough at the time. Maybe a few of you can relate to that. So I can't get that back, but I do have the future. So he's our one boy that's still at home. So I have to ask myself, who am I ready to be? Not just for him, for my whole family, every day ahead. That is Rebecca Brown Schroeder. Some of you might know some parts of her story already. Rebecca and David have 2 girls. Can't help it all on that front. So as long as she can remember, she says, I've loved making connections. Love connecting the dots. Love connecting my Legos. Love connecting my best friend to my latest crush. There's that core sense of who you are thing again. She's your lead partner for Native American Youth and Family Center. Because she's immersed in the day-to-day work, she can listen and learn to the people working directly with families at risk. She will tell you that the partners and staff around here have recognized potential within her to step into roles that she otherwise might not have herself. That's why we do what we do. And in her words, Rebecca gets to see the real value of doing the 3 things that I love most: listening, learning, and making connections. By listening and learning, I have the opportunity to connect investees with resources and people in our partnership and in the community. I'm starting to see a lot more dots on my horizon. People around here will say that Rebecca is an authentic listener, that everything she does comes genuinely from the heart, and that she stretches herself, and in so doing, other people want to jump in with her. So I would tell you that Rebecca is answering, who am I ready to be? She's becoming a fully authentic listener. Because when we do so, people all around us, they become trusted allies. They get a sense of what is possible because they can articulate it to themselves, because we listen. She is being a connector of all parts and people. She has this relentlessly open system view of things, motivated to always make 1 + 1 = 3. And she's being someone that thrives in the hard places. owning that work is hard when you're doing something of real purpose. There are easier ways to do this. People like Rebecca don't take that path. So she is an authentic listener, a relentless connector, willing to go where the work is hard. That's who she's ready to be in this community. So what I hope you heard from me tonight is about 3 people. They are not superheroes. They would viscerally reject that. What we need in this world are lots of regular heroes. Like some of you are, like some of you can be. Now there's no doubt there's time and space in our life where sort of going above and beyond fits better than other times. I get that, that's very, very honest. You don't have to go full time to have huge impact. Know that. What I hope is that those 3 people's stories inspire you and guide you, whatever pathway you're on or however far you're going to go. And remember something. You know, we don't have to be Gandhi to be inspired and guided by him, right? What I can also tell you is that each of these people didn't know how much space they did have until they sat down and explored those questions for and about themselves. So can a question, 3 questions, really be that powerful, really unleash all that for one person? David White is a master poet. He does lots of leadership work with companies all around the world. He's a guy that believes that we all have one beautiful question. That question that is really hard to answer, that helps each of us see more potential in ourselves. That one question that can break open our life. So yes, deeply knowing what you are prepared to believe, what you are willing to own, who you're prepared to be, can be that powerful. I've watched hundreds of people. And those 3 questions are just sitting right there for each of us. This is about work that each of us can do inside ourselves. Answering these questions activates your ideas into actions, into impact that can change your community. Each of us can change our world from the inside out. And then when you connect your ideas and your actions to networks of passionate people around you, you can do so much more together. But of course, you already know that. And that's the second story tonight. Just so you know how things are going the last few years. Ben graduated from college last year. We ran a half marathon together, and he has a job that he loves. Nick took off for college in Texas, much to the heartache of his little brother there. Since he's been in college, he writes for the school newspaper. He's learned to play ukulele. He does stand-up comedy, among other things. And Sam is a starting defensive end, all 85 pounds of him. And he and I built that treehouse together this summer. And just in case any of you are wondering, yes, I did ask the biggest question of all, of the right girl, the right time, and the right steps, under the right moon, at the right moment. She said yes. And Lori is absolutely the core of who the 4 boys are. So I didn't come here tonight just to share a story. I want everyone to know that there are pathways to realizing more of your potential. And that there are people just like each of us that are on and that want to take that journey with you. I hope you know, I'm literally, I almost feel like a desperation. That if each of you know that what you do and how you live your life matters. Not a little bit, but a lot. It really, truly matters. And that by knowing that, each of you will leave tonight ready to realize a little more of your potential. That's all. I constantly wrestle with, struggle with, am on a journey to know what I am prepared to believe, what I'm willing to own, who I'm ready to be. This company, this town likes to remind us to just do it. So I'll leave you with 5 simple words. Just believe, own, be it. And 2 more words. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, we want to ask each of you to do for just a couple minutes before we have Mark take sort of this message about you guys as individuals and how you're going to make this into a bigger thing in Portland. We'd like to ask each of your table just to take a few minutes, and if you would, maybe talk about, does one of those questions relate to you in your work in the community, in your life in some way? Does anything about one of those questions or one of those stories relate to you personally? So if you would, just take 5 minutes, share with people at your table. We'll come back and hear what a few of you thought, and then we'll turn it over to Mark. So go for it.
And others of you can move in here and join tables here. The conversation.
I got that.
FaceTime,
Yep, I'm good.